How does it all start? Let's talk about startup incorporation. For a founder team that is not experienced in incorporating a startup company, it's best to work with an angel investor or serial entrepreneur who has done that several times. At the beginning of a startup journey, many important decisions are made, which are often difficult, time-consuming, or expensive, and sometimes even impossible to correct later. It's a misconception that one needs to have a company in order to be ready to pitch in front of angel investors. Setting up a company in Switzerland is the easy part. Taking the right decisions during the company setup is the hard part. Let's quickly review how a startup company actually works legally in Switzerland. A mistake some founders make is to incorporate a limited liability company, abbreviated as LLC or in German as GmbH. It's the cheapest form of company, but the wrong one. Investors don't like this company form for several reasons, one being that all shareholders and their holdings are made public. The preferred company form for investors is the joint stock company, abbreviated as LTD or in German as AG. Important company setup decisions are, for example, the company purpose, the company domicile, the city and canton where you have your company, then the split of the founder shares, the number and nominal value of the shares. Startups usually prefer 1 million shares for 10 cents instead of 100 shares for 1,000 each. This has advantages for later financing rounds and for employee incentive plans. In the Articles of Associations, you can define the share types and their preference rights. You can allow the use of uncertificated securities, so you don't need physical share certificate. That's very handy. You can also allow for conditional capital for employee incentive plans or authorized capital for subsequent financing rounds. And you can put governance to work. For example, limitations on transferability of shares, special board regulations, and so on. Many decisions have to be taken at the very beginning. And you should be aware of which ones are important, which ones are not. You might have never heard about some of these terms. Without proper advice, chances are high you will not have an optimal company setup. So what's the governance structure of a Swiss joint stock company? The general meeting of the shareholders elects the board of directors, which then hires the top management team, which is usually the founders. The board of directors is responsible to set the company strategy, and the management team is responsible for executing that strategy. Members of the board of directors face joint liability in Switzerland. They can delegate some duties to other people. However, among others, the following ones are non-transferable duties. For example, the organization of the accounting, financial control, and financial planning system. The overall supervision of the persons entrusted with managing the company, usually the founders, in particular with regard to compliance with the law, articles of association, operational regulations, and directives. The compilation of all reports, and the notification of the court in the event that the company is over-indebted. The general meeting of the shareholders is used, among other things, to decide on the appropriation of earnings, who will get dividends, changing the company's purpose, or relocating the company domicile, and discharging the board, or when you create new shares in a capital increase, or if you have to dissolve the company. Now you need to know about some important registers. For example, the commercial register. It lists all companies together with their domicile, the purpose, and all board members. It's public. Every Swiss canton has at least one of them. The central business name index called cefix.ch allows you to search in all of them at once, and it's free. The share register is internal to the joint stock company, and it lists all shareholders together with their shareholdings and the types of shares. It's accompanied by a list of all share transactions, and this is used to determine who has how many votes at the general meeting. Now, what's a capital table or a cap table? It's basically an extended share register, as it also lists rights for shares or equity-like instruments, for example, employee incentive plans. They use some securities, sometimes phantoms or real ones, and you need to know who will get how much. Convertible loans, these are loans that typically will later convert into shares. Investors need to understand who will eventually get how many shares, or who has the right to receive money in an exit, and that's what a capital table tells you as an investor. In a financing round, you often hear the term fully diluted. While you might own 1% of a company based on the share register, when adding all granted stock options from employee incentive plans and all converted shares from convertible loans, you might end up with much less than 1% of ownership. And that's exactly why investors also need a cap table.